Marcus Rodriguez had always been a quiet neighbor, the kind of man who kept his lawn perfectly trimmed, painted his fence every 2 years, and never played music loud enough to disturb anyone. He worked as an electrical engineer for the city, spending his days maintaining power grids and ensuring thousands of homes stayed lit. After 23 years of marriage, he and his wife Elena had finally saved enough to buy their dream home in Willowbrook Estates, a modest suburban community known for its tree-lined streets and friendly atmosphere. The house was everything they had hoped for. A 2-story colonial with blue shutters, a wraparound porch, and a backyard perfect for their twin daughters to play in. The previous owners had installed solar panels on the roof, which meant lower electricity bills and a smaller carbon footprint. Marcus appreciated the engineering behind the system and looked forward to monitoring its efficiency. Their next-door neighbor, Patricia Williamson, introduced herself on moving day with a casserole and what seemed like genuine warmth. She was a woman in her early 50s with perfectly styled blonde hair and an expensive-looking handbag that never left her arm. Patricia mentioned she was the president of the Homeowners Association and would be happy to help them understand all the community guidelines. "We have very specific rules here," Patricia explained while standing in their driveway, her eyes scanning their moving boxes with obvious curiosity. "Paint colors, lawn maintenance schedules, holiday decoration timelines. I make sure everyone follows them to the letter. Property values depend on it, you understand?" Marcus nodded politely, though something in her tone made him slightly uncomfortable. Elena thanked her for the casserole and promised they would be good neighbors. Patricia smiled, but her eyes remained calculating as she examined their solar panel installation. The first few weeks went smoothly. Marcus established his morning routine of checking the solar panel output on his phone app while drinking coffee on the porch. The system was performing beautifully, generating more electricity than their family consumed during most sunny days. The excess power fed back into the grid, earning them credits on their monthly utility bill. Patricia proved to be an attentive neighbor, perhaps too attentive. She had a habit of appearing in her yard whenever Marcus was outside, always finding reasons to strike up conversations. She asked detailed questions about his work, their previous home, and especially about the solar panels. Her curiosity seemed innocent enough at first, disguised as neighborly interest in renewable energy. "Those panels must save you quite a bit of money," she commented one morning while he was watering his roses. "I've been thinking about getting some myself, but the installation costs are so high. How much electricity do they actually produce?" Marcus explained the basics of how solar panels worked, mentioning that their system generated about 30% more power than they used during peak sunlight hours. Patricia listened intently, asking follow-up questions about electrical connections and power meters. He assumed she was genuinely considering solar installation for her own home. The conversations continued for weeks. Patricia would appear with gardening tools whenever Marcus was outside, steering discussions toward electricity costs and solar energy. She complained frequently about her own power bills, mentioning that her house seemed to use more electricity than it should. Marcus offered to recommend some energy-efficient appliances and suggested she have an electrician check for any issues. "You're so knowledgeable about electrical systems," Patricia said during one of these conversations. "I bet you could solve any power problem in the neighborhood." Marcus began noticing small changes in Patricia's behavior. She started timing her outdoor activities to coincide with his schedule, often appearing within minutes of him stepping outside. Her questions became more specific and technical, focusing on electrical connections and power distribution rather than general solar energy topics. When he mentioned that solar systems required proper electrical permits and professional installation, she quickly changed the subject. One evening, while reviewing his monthly utility bill, Marcus noticed something odd. Their electricity usage had increased significantly compared to the previous month, despite no changes in their household habits. The solar panels were producing the same amount of power, but somehow their net consumption had jumped by nearly 40%. He double-checked the numbers, thinking there might be a billing error. Elena suggested they might have a malfunctioning appliance drawing extra power. Marcus spent the weekend testing every electrical device in their home, but everything appeared to be working normally. The mysterious increase in power consumption continued to puzzle him. As an electrical engineer, he understood that sudden spikes in usage usually indicated either equipment problems or external factors affecting the electrical system. The breakthrough came on a Saturday morning when Marcus decided to trace the electrical connections around his property. Solar panel systems required specific wiring configurations, and he wanted to ensure everything was properly connected. While examining the electrical meter and main connection box, he discovered something that made his blood run cold. Someone had installed an unauthorized electrical connection between his house and Patricia's property. A professional-grade electrical cable ran underground from his main panel to what appeared to be Patricia's garage. The connection was expertly hidden, routed beneath landscaping and camouflage to avoid casual detection. Only someone with electrical knowledge would have been able to install such a sophisticated setup. Marcus stared at the illegal connection in disbelief. Patricia had been systematically stealing electricity from his solar panel system for weeks, possibly months. The additional power consumption explained the spike in his utility bills and the reduced efficiency of his solar credits. She had essentially turned his renewable energy investment into her personal power source. The audacity of the theft was staggering. Patricia had spent weeks engaging him in friendly conversations about solar panels and electricity costs, while secretly siphoning power from his system. She had used her position as HOA president and trusted neighbor to gain his confidence, all while planning and executing an elaborate theft scheme. Marcus carefully documented the illegal connection with photographs, measuring the cable specifications and tracing the exact route to Patricia's property. As an electrical engineer, he understood the serious safety and legal implications of unauthorized electrical connections. Beyond the theft itself, the improper installation could create fire, hazards, or electrocution risks for both properties. The realization that his seemingly friendly neighbor had been stealing from him while maintaining a facade of community leadership filled Marcus with a mixture of anger and determination. Patricia had clearly underestimated whom she was dealing with. She might have chosen the wrong neighbor for her electrical theft scheme, but Marcus was about to show her exactly why that was a mistake. Marcus spent the rest of Saturday documenting everything. He photographed the illegal electrical connection from multiple angles, measured the cable thickness, and traced its exact path from his electrical panel to Patricia's garage. Using his professional equipment, he tested the current flow and confirmed that significant amounts of electricity were being diverted to her property. The theft was sophisticated and had clearly been planned by someone with electrical knowledge. Elena was furious when Marcus explained what he had discovered. Their family had been struggling to understand why their electricity bills had increased so dramatically. Despite having solar panels, they had questioned their own energy usage, worried about malfunctioning appliances, and even considered calling an electrician to diagnose mysterious power consumption, all while their neighbor was literally stealing electricity from their system. "We need to call the police immediately," Elena said, pacing around their living room with barely contained anger. "This is theft, pure and simple. She's been stealing from us for months while pretending to be our friend." Marcus agreed that Patricia needed to face consequences, but as an electrical engineer, he understood the complexities of proving electrical theft. Simply calling the police might not be enough. Patricia could claim ignorance about the connection or argue that it was installed by previous homeowners. Without proper documentation and expert testimony, she might escape responsibility for her crimes. "I want to gather more evidence first," Marcus told his wife. "If we're going to expose Patricia, we need to make sure she can't talk her way out of this. I want to understand exactly how long this has been going on and document everything properly." Over the next few days, Marcus conducted a thorough investigation of his electrical system. He reviewed utility bills going back 6 months, looking for patterns in power consumption that might indicate when the theft began. The data revealed that unusual electricity usage had started approximately 3 weeks after they moved in, coinciding with Patricia's increased interest in their solar panel system. Marcus also researched property records and previous utility accounts for their address. The illegal electrical connection had definitely been installed after they moved in, ruling out any possibility that previous homeowners were responsible. Patricia had specifically targeted their solar panel system, timing her theft to begin after she had gathered enough information about their electrical setup through seemingly innocent conversations. The evidence was overwhelming, but Marcus wanted to understand the full scope of Patricia's operation. He suspected she might have stolen electricity from other neighbors or committed similar violations in her role as HOA president. With access to community property records and utility information, Patricia could have identified other targets for her schemes. Marcus decided to contact other neighbors discreetly to inquire about unusual electricity bills or suspicious electrical issues. He started with Tom and Sarah Bennett, who lived across the street and had installed solar panels the previous year. When Marcus mentioned experiencing unexplained increases in power consumption, Tom immediately perked up with interest. "You know, we've been having similar problems," Tom admitted during their conversation. "Our solar efficiency dropped significantly about 6 months ago, but we couldn't figure out why. The panels are working fine, but we're not getting the energy credits we expected." Marcus asked Tom about his relationship with Patricia and whether she had shown unusual interest in his electrical system. Tom confirmed that Patricia had indeed asked detailed questions about his solar installation and had even requested a tour of his electrical panel setup. She claimed to be considering solar panels for her own home and wanted to understand the technical requirements. The pattern was becoming clear. Patricia had been systematically gathering information about solar panel installations throughout the neighborhood, identifying potential targets for electrical theft. Her position as HOA president gave her access to property information and opportunities to visit homes under the guise of community business at Sarah. Bennett mentioned that Patricia had visited their home several times over the past year, always finding reasons to inspect their backyard and electrical installations. She claimed to be checking for HOA compliance issues, but her attention always focused on technical equipment rather than aesthetic violations. She asked really specific questions about our electrical connections, Sarah recalled. Questions that seemed odd for someone just interested in HOA compliance. She wanted to know about our power usage, billing cycles, and even asked to see our utility statements. Marcus shared his discovery with Tom and Sarah, showing them photographs of the illegal electrical connection. They were shocked to learn about Patricia's theft scheme and immediately agreed to check their own properties for unauthorized electrical connections. The possibility that Patricia had been stealing from multiple neighbors added serious criminal implications to her actions. Tom found evidence of electrical tampering near his main power panel, though the connection had been more carefully concealed than the one at Marcus's house. Sarah discovered unusual electrical cables running beneath landscaping between their property and Patricia's backyard. The scope of Patricia's theft operation was much larger than Marcus had initially suspected. The three neighbors decided to coordinate their response carefully. They agreed to document all evidence thoroughly before confronting Patricia or involving authorities. Marcus suggested they also research Patricia's background and HOA activities to identify any other potential violations or abuse of her position. Research into Patricia's tenure as HOA president revealed a pattern of authoritarian behavior and questionable financial management. Several previous residents had filed complaints about her aggressive enforcement of minor violations while ignoring more serious community issues. There were also questions about HOA funds and vendor contracts that Patricia had personally approved without proper board oversight. Marcus realized that Patricia's electrical theft was likely part of a broader pattern of entitlement and abuse of power. Her position as HOA president had given her access to community resources and neighbors' trust, which she had systematically exploited for personal gain. The woman who enforced neighborhood rules with iron-fisted determination had been flagrantly violating property rights and stealing from the very people she claimed to serve. The neighbors spent several days collecting evidence and preparing their case. They documented electrical theft from 3 properties, photographed unauthorized connections, and gathered utility bills showing the financial impact of Patricia's crimes. Marcus used his professional expertise to calculate the total amount of electricity stolen and its monetary value. The evidence package was substantial. Patricia had stolen approximately $4,000 worth of electricity over 8 months, while simultaneously using her HOA position to harass neighbors about minor violations. She had turned neighborhood leadership into a personal profit center, stealing from families while lecturing them about community standards and property values. Marcus knew that simply confronting Patricia privately would likely result in denials and attempts to cover up evidence. She had already proven herself to be manipulative and dishonest, using friendship and community trust to facilitate theft. Any direct confrontation would give her time to remove evidence and prepare excuses. Instead, Marcus developed a plan that would expose Patricia's crimes while preventing her from escaping responsibility. He would use his electrical engineering expertise to catch Patricia in the act of theft, creating undeniable evidence of her criminal activity. The woman who thought she could outsmart an electrical engineer was about to learn a very expensive lesson about underestimating her victims. Marcus spent the weekend developing his strategy to catch Patricia red-handed. As an electrical engineer, he had access to sophisticated monitoring equipment that could track power consumption in real time and create detailed records of electrical theft. His plan would not only prove Patricia's crimes, but also prevent her from destroying evidence or claiming ignorance about the illegal connections. The first step involved installing hidden electrical monitoring devices at strategic points around his property. Marcus placed current sensors on the main electrical feed and the unauthorized connection leading to Patricia's house. These devices would record exactly how much electricity was being stolen and when the theft occurred. The data would be time-stamped and stored remotely, creating an irrefutable record of Patricia's criminal activity. Marcus also installed motion-activated security cameras focused on the electrical connection points. If Patricia attempted to remove or modify the illegal wiring, the cameras would capture video evidence of her tampering with electrical systems. The surveillance system was designed to operate continuously without requiring maintenance or obvious monitoring equipment that might alert Patricia to the investigation. Elena helped coordinate with Tom and Sarah Bennett to ensure their evidence collection remained synchronized. All three families were documenting electrical theft, but they needed to present a unified case that demonstrated the scope of Patricia's operation. Elena also researched legal procedures for reporting electrical theft and contacted a lawyer to understand their rights and options for pursuing criminal charges. The monitoring equipment immediately began capturing evidence of ongoing theft. Every day, significant amounts of electricity flowed from Marcus's solar panel system directly to Patricia's property. The data showed peak theft occurring during daytime hours when solar panels generated maximum power, suggesting Patricia was specifically targeting renewable energy systems for her crimes. Marcus reviewed the data each evening, building a comprehensive timeline of Patricia's theft activities. The record showed she was stealing an average of 15 to 20 kilowatt-hours per day, equivalent to the electricity usage of an entire household. Over 8 months, Patricia had stolen enough electricity to power an average home for nearly 2 months. The financial calculations were staggering. Patricia had effectively received free electricity worth thousands of dollars, while her victims struggled with unexpectedly high utility bills. The theft had also reduced the efficiency of their solar panel investments, costing them additional money in lost energy credits and reduced system performance. During this investigation period, Patricia continued her normal routine of appearing in her yard whenever Marcus was outside. She maintained her friendly facade, asking about his family and making small talk about neighborhood events. The casual conversations took on a sinister tone now that Marcus understood her true motivations. Every innocent question about electrical systems or utility costs was actually intelligence gathering for her theft operation. "Your solar panels seem to be working really well," Patricia commented during one of these encounters. "I notice your house always has power, even during those brief outages we've had lately. Must be nice to have such reliable electricity." Marcus managed to respond politely while internally seething at her audacity. Patricia was essentially bragging about stealing his electricity while pretending to admire his solar panel system. She had no idea that every word of their conversation was being recorded by hidden cameras, or that sophisticated monitoring equipment was documenting her crimes in real time. The breakthrough moment came on a Tuesday afternoon when Marcus's monitoring equipment detected unusual activity in the electrical connection. Patricia had accessed the unauthorized wiring and appeared to be modifying the connection to increase power flow to her property. The current sensors showed a dramatic spike in electricity theft, suggesting she was attempting to steal even more power. Marcus immediately activated his security cameras and watched in amazement as Patricia worked confidently with electrical wiring, demonstrating clear knowledge of power systems and electrical connections. She was not an innocent homeowner who had accidentally benefited from someone else's illegal wiring. Patricia was an experienced electrical thief who understood exactly what she was doing. The video footage showed Patricia using professional electrical tools to modify connections and increase power flow from Marcus's system to her house. She worked methodically and carefully, suggesting this was not her first time manipulating electrical systems for theft purposes. The evidence definitively proved that Patricia was the architect of the theft scheme and had personally installed and maintained the illegal connections. Marcus called Tom and Sarah Bennett to inform them about the breakthrough evidence. They agreed it was time to involve law enforcement and utility companies to report the theft and pursue criminal charges. The evidence package now included video, footage of Patricia personally modifying electrical connections, detailed records of power theft, and financial calculations of the stolen electricity's value. Before contacting authorities, Marcus decided to set a trap that would catch Patricia in an even more compromising situation. He planned to temporarily disconnect his solar panel system during peak sunlight hours, which would force Patricia's electrical theft to draw power directly from the electrical grid. This would create obvious evidence of unauthorized power consumption that utility companies could easily detect and investigate. Marcus coordinated the timing with his neighbors to ensure maximum impact. On the chosen day, all three families would simultaneously document electrical activity while Marcus's solar panels were offline. Any power flowing to Patricia's house during this period would have to come from illegal connections to their electrical systems, creating undeniable proof of theft. The trap was set for the following Thursday, when weather forecasts predicted clear skies and maximum solar energy production. Marcus would disconnect his solar panels at noon, forcing Patricia's theft operation to rely entirely on stolen grid electricity. The monitoring equipment would record every kilowatt of stolen power, while security cameras captured any attempts Patricia made to modify connections or cover up evidence. Marcus felt confident that Thursday's operation would provide the final evidence needed to expose Patricia's crimes and ensure she faced appropriate consequences. The woman who had spent months stealing electricity while enforcing HOA rules against her neighbors was about to discover that her victims were far more resourceful than she had anticipated. Elena was nervous about the confrontation that would inevitably follow their evidence collection, but she supported Marcus's methodical approach to building an airtight case against Patricia. They had both been victims of theft and deception, and they deserved justice for Patricia's crimes. More importantly, other neighborhood families needed protection from Patricia's abuse of power and criminal behavior. As Thursday approached, Marcus reviewed his evidence package one final time. The documentation was comprehensive and professional, suitable for police investigation and potential court proceedings. Patricia had chosen the wrong neighbor for her electrical theft scheme, and she was about to learn that stealing from an electrical engineer carried serious consequences she had never anticipated. Thursday morning arrived with perfect weather conditions for Marcus's plan. Clear skies and strong sunlight would ensure maximum solar panel output, making Patricia's electrical theft more obvious when the panels were disconnected. Marcus had coordinated with Tom and Sarah Bennett to monitor their properties simultaneously, creating multiple data points that would strengthen their case against Patricia. At 11:30, Marcus positioned himself near his electrical panel with monitoring equipment and cameras ready to record everything. Elena watched from the kitchen window while Tom and Sarah observed from their respective properties. The neighborhood appeared normal, with Patricia's car in her driveway and no indication that she suspected anything unusual was about to happen. Precisely at noon, Marcus disconnected his solar panel system from the electrical grid. The monitoring equipment immediately began recording data, as electricity consumption patterns shifted throughout both properties. Within minutes, the sensors detected continued power flow through the unauthorized connection to Patricia's house, confirming that she was stealing electricity directly from the grid through his electrical system. The data was exactly what Marcus had hoped to capture. With his solar panels offline, any electricity flowing to Patricia's property had to be coming from the main electrical grid through the illegal connection. The theft was no longer disguised by solar panel output, making it easily detectable by utility companies and law enforcement agencies. Marcus watched his monitoring devices record kilowatt after kilowatt of stolen electricity flowing to Patricia's house. The theft continued steadily throughout the afternoon, providing hours of documented evidence that Patricia was systematically stealing power. The financial value of the stolen electricity accumulated in real time, adding up to hundreds of dollars worth of theft in a single day. Around 2 o'clock, Patricia's garage door opened and she emerged with what appeared to be electrical tools. Marcus immediately activated his security cameras and began recording as Patricia approached the connection point where the illegal wiring entered her property. She seemed to be checking the electrical connection, possibly trying to determine why power flow had changed. The video footage captured Patricia examining the unauthorized electrical connection with obvious familiarity and technical knowledge. She used professional electrical testing equipment to measure current flow and voltage levels, demonstrating that she understood electrical systems well enough to monitor and maintain her theft operation. This evidence destroyed any possible claims that she was unaware of the illegal connection or its purpose. Patricia spent approximately 20 minutes inspecting the electrical connection before returning to her garage. The monitoring equipment continued recording stolen electricity throughout her inspection, proving that she was aware of ongoing theft, but chose to maintain the illegal connection rather than disconnect it. Her actions demonstrated criminal intent and ongoing participation in electrical theft. Marcus felt a mixture of satisfaction and anger as he watched Patricia casually maintain her theft operation while his family paid inflated electricity bills. The woman who spent her time lecturing neighbors about property maintenance and community standards was flagrantly violating electrical codes and stealing thousands of dollars worth of utilities from her victims. The afternoon monitoring session provided exactly the evidence Marcus needed to prove Patricia's crimes beyond any reasonable doubt. The data showed continuous electrical theft during peak consumption hours, while video footage documented Patricia's personal involvement in maintaining the illegal connection. No court would accept claims of ignorance or accidental theft given such comprehensive evidence. Tom and Sarah Bennett reported similar findings from their monitoring efforts. Patricia's theft operation extended to multiple properties, suggesting a sophisticated criminal enterprise rather than opportunistic theft from a single neighbor. The scope of her crimes added felony charges to what might otherwise have been treated as a misdemeanor violation. As evening approached, Marcus reconnected his solar panel system and compiled the day's evidence into a comprehensive report. The documentation included time-stamped data logs, video footage, financial calculations, and expert analysis of the electrical theft scheme. The evidence package was professional, enough to support criminal prosecution and civil lawsuits for financial damages. Elena contacted their lawyer to schedule an immediate consultation about pursuing legal action against Patricia. The attorney confirmed that electrical theft was a serious criminal offense that carried significant fines and potential jail time. With the evidence Marcus had collected, prosecution would likely result in felony convictions and substantial financial penalties. The neighbors also contacted the local utility company to report unauthorized electrical connections and ongoing theft. Utility companies take electrical theft very seriously because it creates safety hazards and shifts costs to other customers. The company agreed to send investigators the following day to examine the illegal connections and assess the scope of the theft. Marcus spent Thursday evening preparing for the confrontation that would inevitably occur once authorities became involved. Patricia would likely attempt to deny responsibility, claim ignorance about electrical systems, or argue that the connections were installed by previous property owners. However, the video evidence of her maintaining the illegal wiring would make such defenses impossible to sustain. The psychological aspect of Patricia's crimes was perhaps even more disturbing than the financial theft. She had spent months building relationships with her victims, gaining their trust through friendly conversations and community involvement. Patricia had used her position as HOA president to access properties and gather information that facilitated her theft operation. Marcus realized that Patricia represented a particularly dangerous type of criminal. She used social engineering and community trust to commit sophisticated theft while maintaining a respectable public image. Her victims had welcomed her into their homes and shared personal information, never suspecting that their friendly neighbor was systematically stealing from them. The evidence collection phase was complete, but Marcus understood that exposing Patricia's crimes would likely create significant neighborhood conflict. As HOA president, Patricia had cultivated supporters who might defend her or question the allegations. The situation would require careful handling to ensure justice while minimizing community disruption. Elena worried about potential retaliation from Patricia once the theft allegations became public. People who commit sophisticated fraud often escalate their behavior when cornered, and Patricia had already demonstrated willingness to violate laws and abuse positions of trust. The family would need to be prepared for various forms of harassment or intimidation. Marcus felt confident that their evidence was strong enough to withstand any defensive strategies Patricia might employ. The combination of technical data, video footage, and expert analysis created an overwhelming case that no reasonable person could dispute. Patricia had been caught red-handed committing electrical theft, and she would face appropriate consequences for her crimes. Friday morning would bring the beginning of Patricia's downfall. Utility investigators, law enforcement officers, and legal professionals would review the evidence and begin formal proceedings against the woman who thought she could steal electricity with impunity. Marcus looked forward to seeing justice served and ensuring that Patricia could never again abuse her neighbor's trust for criminal purposes. Friday morning arrived with utility investigators pulling into the neighborhood at exactly 8 o'clock. Marcus had provided them with detailed documentation of the electrical theft, including technical specifications, monitoring data, and video evidence of Patricia's involvement. The lead investigator, James Mitchell, had 20 years of experience investigating utility fraud and immediately recognized the sophistication of Patricia's operation. "This is one of the most elaborate electrical theft schemes I've encountered," Mitchell told Marcus as they examined the unauthorized connections. "Most people who steal electricity use crude methods that are easily detected. Your neighbor clearly has electrical knowledge and access to professional equipment." The investigators spent 3 hours documenting the illegal wiring between Marcus's property and Patricia's house. They photographed every connection point, measured cable specifications, and tested current flow through the unauthorized system. The evidence confirmed that Patricia had stolen approximately $6,000 worth of electricity over 10 months of operation. Mitchell's team also investigated the connections at Tom and Sarah Bennett's properties, finding similar unauthorized wiring leading to Patricia's house. The total theft from all three families exceeded $12,000, elevating the charges from misdemeanor to felony level. Patricia had essentially operated a neighborhood-wide electrical theft ring while serving as HOA president. During the investigation, Patricia remained inside her house with curtains drawn and garage doors closed. She had clearly noticed the utility trucks and investigative activity, but chose not to emerge or offer any explanations. Her behavior suggested consciousness of guilt and awareness that her criminal operation had been discovered. Around 11 o'clock, 2 police officers arrived to interview the victims and review evidence of criminal theft. Detective Sarah Williams specialized in fraud cases and was impressed by the quality of documentation Marcus had provided. The combination of technical data, video footage, and expert analysis created an exceptionally strong criminal case. In most theft cases, we struggle to prove intent and criminal knowledge, Detective Williams explained. Your evidence shows clear criminal intent, ongoing theft, and the defendant's personal involvement in maintaining illegal connections. This case should result in serious criminal charges. The police interviews with Marcus, Elena, Tom, and Sarah revealed the psychological manipulation Patricia had used to facilitate her crimes. She had spent months building trust with her victims, using friendly conversations to gather intelligence about their electrical systems while planning her theft operation. The officers recognized this as sophisticated criminal behavior rather than opportunistic theft. Detective Williams confirmed that Patricia would be arrested within 24 hours once the investigation was complete. The charges would likely include grand theft, utility fraud, criminal trespass, and potentially racketeering given the multi-property scope of her operation. Each charge carried significant fines and potential prison time. Marcus felt vindicated as law enforcement officials validated his evidence and confirmed the seriousness of Patricia's crimes. Months of inflated electricity bills, concern about system malfunctions, and worry about appliance problems had all been caused by Patricia's deliberate theft. The relief of understanding the true cause of their electrical issues was almost as satisfying as seeing justice served. The utility company's financial Analysis revealed additional costs beyond the stolen electricity itself. Patricia's theft had reduced the efficiency of solar panel systems, costing victims money and lost energy credits and reduced system performance. The total financial impact exceeded $15,000 when these indirect costs were included. Around 2 o'clock, Detective Williams knocked on Patricia's front door to serve a warrant for her arrest. Marcus watched from his kitchen window as Patricia answered the door wearing a bathrobe and appearing disheveled. The conversation lasted approximately 10 minutes before Patricia was handcuffed and placed in the police car. The sight of Patricia being arrested in handcuffs while neighbors watched from their yards felt surreal to Marcus. The woman who had enforced community standards with authoritarian zeal was now facing serious criminal charges for violating her neighbors' basic property rights. Her position as HOA president made the betrayal even more shocking to community members. News of Patricia's arrest spread quickly throughout Willowbrook Estates. Neighbors who had previously feared Patricia's aggressive enforcement of minor violations began sharing stories of her abusive behavior and questionable HOA management. Several residents mentioned suspicious electrical issues and unexplained utility bill increases that now made sense in light of the theft allegations. The HOA board held an emergency meeting Friday evening to address Patricia's arrest and her immediate removal from the presidency. Board members expressed shock at the criminal charges and apologized to affected families for Patricia's abuse of her position. They promised a thorough investigation of HOA finances and management practices during Patricia's tenure. Elena attended the HOA meeting to represent their family's interests and ensure that Patricia's supporters didn't attempt to minimize her crimes or shift blame to the victims. The meeting was tense, with some residents defending Patricia, while others demanded accountability for her criminal behavior and abuse of community trust. The board voted unanimously to remove Patricia from all HOA positions and ban her from holding future leadership roles. They also authorized an independent audit of HOA finances to identify any other potential misconduct during Patricia's presidency. Several financial irregularities had already raised questions about vendor contracts and expenditure approvals. Marcus learned that Patricia had been released on bail pending trial, but she was prohibited from contacting any of the theft victims or interfering with ongoing investigations. A protective order prevented her from approaching Marcus's property or attempting to remove evidence of her crimes. Violation of these conditions would result in immediate arrest and higher bail requirements. The criminal case against Patricia would likely take several months to resolve through the court system. However, the evidence was so overwhelming that her attorney would probably recommend a plea agreement rather than risk trial and potentially harsher sentences. The video footage of Patricia maintaining illegal electrical connections made denial of the charges virtually impossible. Marcus also planned to pursue civil litigation to recover financial damages, legal fees, and compensation for the stress and inconvenience Patricia's crimes had caused his family. The civil case would proceed independently of criminal charges and could result in significant financial penalties beyond any criminal fines. Saturday morning brought reporters from local news stations who had learned about the unusual electrical theft case. Marcus agreed to interviews that would help other homeowners recognize signs of utility theft and protect themselves from similar crimes. The story of an HOA president stealing electricity from neighbors while enforcing minor violations resonated with audiences who had dealt with overzealous community leaders. The media attention focused on the hypocrisy of Patricia's behavior and the sophisticated nature of her theft operation. Electrical engineers interviewed for the news stories confirmed that Patricia's scheme required significant technical knowledge and access to professional equipment, suggesting this was not her first experience with utility fraud. As the weekend concluded, Marcus reflected on how dramatically the situation had changed since discovering the illegal electrical connection. Patricia's arrest and removal from the HOA presidency would hopefully restore peace and trust to the neighborhood. More importantly, justice was being served for victims of her sophisticated theft operation. 3 months later, Patricia Williamson stood in criminal court wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, a far cry from the perfectly dressed HOA president who had once terrorized neighbors over minor violations. Her attorney had attempted to negotiate a plea agreement, but the overwhelming evidence of systematic electrical theft made prosecutors unwilling to offer lenient terms. The trial lasted only 2 days due to the comprehensive evidence Marcus had collected. Video footage of Patricia maintaining illegal electrical connections, time-stamped data showing continuous theft, and expert testimony about the sophisticated nature of her operation left no room for reasonable doubt. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all charges. Judge Margaret Chen sentenced Patricia to 18 months in county jail, 5 years of probation, and restitution of $24,000 to cover stolen electricity, system damage, and victim compensation. The sentence sent a clear message that utility theft would be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, regardless of the perpetrator's social status or community position. Your abuse of community trust and systematic theft from neighbors represents a particularly troubling form of criminal behavior, Judge Chen told Patricia during sentencing. You used your position as HOA president to facilitate crimes against the very people you were supposed to serve. Marcus felt satisfied watching Patricia receive consequences proportional to her crimes. The woman who had spent months lecturing neighbors about community standards while stealing thousands of dollars in electricity was finally being held accountable for her criminal behavior. Justice had been served through the legal system rather than vigilante retaliation. The civil lawsuit Marcus filed against Patricia resulted in additional financial penalties beyond the criminal restitution. Patricia was ordered to pay $35,000 in damages, legal fees, and punitive awards designed to deter similar crimes. Her homeowner's insurance refused to cover the judgment, leaving Patricia personally responsible for the entire amount. Patricia's house went into foreclosure within 6 months as she struggled to pay legal judgments while serving jail time. The property sold for significantly less than market value, with proceeds going toward victim compensation and legal fees. The woman who had obsessed over property values ultimately destroyed her own financial security through criminal behavior. The HOA board's investigation revealed additional misconduct during Patricia's tenure as president. She had awarded landscaping contracts to companies that provided kickbacks, approved unnecessary expenditures that benefited her personally, and used HOA funds for personal expenses disguised as community business. The total financial misconduct exceeded $50,000 over 3 years. Several other former board members faced criminal charges for their roles in the HOA financial schemes. Patricia's influence had extended throughout the organization, creating a culture of corruption and abuse that victimized the entire community. The cleanup process required new leadership, financial audits, and revised governance procedures. Marcus received recognition from the local utility company for his role in exposing the electrical theft scheme. His professional documentation and investigation techniques helped authorities understand the scope of utility fraud in residential communities. The case became a training example for other investigators dealing with sophisticated theft operations. The new HOA president, elected after Patricia's arrest, implemented transparent governance procedures and regular financial audits to prevent future misconduct. Community meetings became open forums for resident concerns rather than authoritarian lectures about minor violations. The neighborhood atmosphere improved dramatically without Patricia's oppressive leadership style. Tom and Sarah Bennett used their theft compensation to upgrade their home security systems and electrical monitoring equipment. The experience had taught them valuable lessons about protecting themselves from utility fraud and recognizing signs of illegal electrical connections. They became advocates for homeowner education about utility theft prevention. Elena started a neighborhood watch program focused on financial crimes and HOA accountability. The group educated residents about recognizing fraud, understanding their rights, and reporting suspicious activity to appropriate authorities. The program helped restore community trust and prevented future victimization by unscrupulous leaders. Marcus's solar panel system returned to normal efficiency after the illegal connections were removed and proper wiring was restored. His electricity bills dropped to expected levels, and the system began generating the energy credits he had originally anticipated. The financial benefits of renewable energy were finally realized without Patricia's theft-reducing system performance. The media coverage of Patricia's case inspired other communities to investigate their own HOA management and utility usage patterns. Several similar theft schemes were discovered and prosecuted, suggesting that Patricia's crimes were part of a broader pattern of utility fraud in residential communities. Awareness of these schemes helped prevent additional victims. Marcus occasionally drove past Patricia's former house, now occupied by a young family with small children. The new owners had no idea about the property's criminal history, but they benefited from the improved HOA governance and community atmosphere that followed Patricia's removal. The neighborhood had healed from the trauma of her leadership. Professional organizations in the electrical engineering field used Marcus's case as an example of how technical expertise could be applied to criminal investigations. His methodical approach to evidence collection and use of monitoring equipment became a model for other professionals dealing with utility theft. The case demonstrated how engineering skills could serve community justice. 2 years after Patricia's arrest, Willowbrook Estates had transformed into the friendly community it was originally intended to be. Property values increased due to improved management and positive community relations. Residents felt comfortable in their neighborhood without fear of harassment from authoritarian leaders or concerns about hidden criminal activity. Marcus's family thrived in their dream home, finally able to enjoy the solar panel system and community amenities they had purchased. Elena's garden flourished without Patricia's critical inspections, and their twin daughters played freely in the neighborhood without witnessing adult conflicts. The home became the sanctuary they had originally hoped to find. The case of Patricia Williamson became a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked authority and the importance of community vigilance. Her transformation from respected HOA president to convicted felon demonstrated how positions of trust could be abused for criminal purposes. More importantly, it showed how ordinary citizens with professional skills and determination could expose corruption and ensure justice prevailed. Marcus's careful investigation and methodical evidence collection had not only resolved his family's electrical theft problem but also protected an entire community from ongoing criminal victimization. The electrical engineer who simply wanted to understand his utility bills had become an unlikely hero who restored integrity to his neighborhood and ensured that a criminal HOA president faced appropriate consequences for her crimes.